East Asia. Um, the ADB, we have 7 priorities, 7 operational priorities to achieve this sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous Asia Pacific. And one of it is the food security and rural development. So in this conference, we talk a lot about the food security, but rural development is very much the core of ADB operation. But if you take a look at this rural development in Asia, it started from more agricultural, production, promotion, and it become more diversification of agricultural production to non-farm sectors, and now more moving towards the preservation of natural capital, more multifunctionality to other than agriculture production. So issue is getting more and more complicated, and connection between food security and rural development has been less and less clear. So we are kind of working on how we can define the new rural development strategy of ADB. So that's why we're organizing this session today, and we have 4 prominent experts here today, and 1 online speakers today. Sorry, this list is not correct, and also Mr. Iljon, his face is is wrong. I really apologize. But we have in total 5 speakers, and we would like to have limiting 15 minutes presentation by each speaker first, and then we will have an interaction with the audience, both on site and online. So with that, I think we have represented from PRC China, we have Korea and Japan, and also Professor Keotsuka is really expert in all of Asia. So I think we have a very good coverage in terms of geographical area, and also we have Professor Chenji, also again from PRC, sharing some innovative approach. So with that, I think I would like to invite Professor Kevin Chen, and he's the Kushi Chair Professor and International Dean of China Academy for Rural Development of Zhejiang University, and also Senior Research Fellow of IFPRI. Yeah. Welcome, Kevin.
Well, thank you very much, Shingo. And it's my great pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation from ADB and on this very interesting panel, and particularly in case of China. And in the past few years, that sounds like almost everything government of China is doing. It's the rural revitalization. So why we are doing rural revitalization in China? A couple of things happening. Economy is not as good as it used to be. Economic growth is slowing down. Secondly, people are move out. And just like today in the audience, we need more people in rural areas, but it's not happening. People are moving out, right? And so we need to revive that. At the same time, we are facing challenge environmentally, and land are degraded, and water are polluted, and so on. And there are 10 years ago, if you go to the province of Zhejiang, for example, and there's a lot of garbage in the rural village. So environmental issue is come from all fronts. So with all those, I think countries across the world come up with that idea, rural revitalization. In Japan, in South Korea, and they started quite early, right? 1970, 1980, and they started this new movement. We're going to hear from our prestigious speakers from Japan and South Korea. And in China, they started this movement probably 2012, and more strongly in 2017, when they introduced formally the rural revitalization program. So with that, how do I move the? doesn't listen to me. Yeah. Oh, they will move. I just tell them they will move. Okay. Well, I already finished these slides, so we can move forward, please. Next slides, please. And so as I mentioned, in across Asia, and we observed the different type of rural development program focused on the reviving. Thank you. Focus on the reviving the rural economy in the Asian economies and so on. And this is a big thing in Asia, and the implementation of those type of rural development programs certainly has been crucial. And a couple of lessons we learned. Number one is to strengthen the infrastructure in rural area. And Professor Kiroshi yesterday very much emphasized the human capital accumulation, the importance of that. So in China, we call that talented cultivation. Technology innovation, and it's always key, and to promote the integration of primary, secondary, and tertiary industries, and particularly in Japan, this is called the Sixth Industrial Revolution, this being a very important integration strategy. Secondly is implementing environmental protection and improve the living standards, living conditions in the village to improve the environmental sustainability and sustainable rural development. And the third thing is unlock the rural-urban factor markets and prioritizing the rural social security system to close the rural-urban gap. The rise in rural-urban gap has been a phenomenon across the world. And, but recently in China, because of the adoption, I will put a question mark there. We are currently doing the empirical study on that. Because of the adoption of rural revitalization program, China is able to close the gap between the rural and urbans. So this is important. So if I look at the China's evolution of rural revitalization strategy, as I mentioned, initially this particular strategy was introduced in October 2017, and then, as you can see, it moves through to the 2024. Every single major policy document in China is about rural revitalization. And in December 2017, President Xi stressed the importance of this particular revitalization program. In 2018, State Council issued the #1 documents outlining a specific task and requirement for rural revitalization. And in September 2018, and the State Council issued the 2018 to 2022 Rural Revitalization Plan. And in May 2021, they issued a law called the Rural Revitalization Promotion Law. So as you can see, that's how much emphasis the government of China has placed on that. And in February 22nd, State Council issued the 14th five-year plan to announcing the concrete plan to implement the revitalization strategy. Again, this is also another phenomenal thing. In 2024 January, they issued a new #1 documents in China, which emphasized the experience in Zhejiang province to promote the rural development. And the Zhejiang province is one of the well-developed areas in China, and in where the market force play a dominant role. That's a bit different from most regions in China in the sense. So, if you look at that particular strategy, as we mentioned, in the first stage, 2017 to 2020, target is on narrowing urban-rural disparity, eliminated the poverty. In the second stage, 2021 to 2035, that's basically to achieve the basic modernization of agriculture and rural area. And the third stage, not started yet, 2036 to 2050, to achieve the grand goal of a stronger agriculture industry, beautiful countryside. Beautiful countryside is a key word in Chinese policy those days. They always emphasize the beautiful. And well-off farmer by 2050. As you can see, Chinese government has a long vision for the rural development. And in Zhejiang province, why that achieve such recognition? It has a nickname called Thousands and 10,000s Village Program, 千万工程. And this is the concrete example of rural revitalization in Zhejiang province. But it started much earlier than the national campaign for rural revitalization. It started in 2012. That time, rural areas polluted, garbage everywhere, so they want to tackle the rural development, look at improving the so-called rural living condition, environment. So they focus on road construction, garbage classification, disposal, wastewater treatment, toilet renovation, village greening projects. So they started this kind of movement in the village of Zhejiang province. And over 20 years, and this goal has been extended to, with emphasis to building so-called beautiful rural village. And now the concept is key in Zhejiang province is called to develop the future village. That's roughly the way. So for Zhejiang's experience, it also has a different stage. First stage, 2003, 2007, and it involved 10,000 village. As I said, road improvement, garbage collection, sanitation with toilet, river dredging, and village greening, and so on. In second stage, 2008, 2012, focus on taking care of the non-point source pollution, livestock manure, chemical fertilizer reduction, and as well as renovation and construction of rural housing. Now, in the new stage from 2013, what we call the deepening stage, is emphasized on the domestic wastewater treatment and household waste sorting, processing, efforts to protect historical cultural village. So this is the stage the Zhejiang province went through. Now it set as example for the country. So that's why central government of China issued the #1 documents promoting the case of Zhejiang province as a model for the rest of the countries. So this is the example what happened in about 20 years in Zhejiang province. That's the village you say, that's the new village, look like more greener, more beautiful. That's the ideas. And as a Mitigate Plus initiative of CGIR, which I led the China portion, we worked on the village called Qingshan Village, try to improve the water quality, change the environment of the village. And with that, it improved the rural tourism and village hotel as a new industry. They move out to the manufacturing sector because that's polluting, and they reduce the chemical use and so on. So you see a new, what we call now CGIR, through the initiative of a low carbon village, we promoting the low carbon pilot village. Because of time limit, I'm not going to go through the detail. We very much emphasize a bottom-up rural governance approach. This is very important. The motivation for development has to come from the villagers, not from the government. So Qingshan village is an example of how grassroots level people can get together to promote the rural development. So with that, we established the so-called Zero Carbon Smart Village Alliance. Just established in Shanghai 2 weeks ago. I'm the president of that particular alliance. And we want to promote the low carbon smart village development in the east coast part of China, because where the economic is more developed and we have more chance to succeed. So with that, let me conclude with my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Kevin. And this is a very good illustration of the evolution of rural vitalization strategy in the PRC China. And now I'd like to invite Professor Kei Otsuka. He's the professor of development economics at the Graduate School of Economics of Kobe University and chief senior researcher at the Institute of Development Economics in Tokyo. And he was also speaking at the end of the plenary session and he'll share his perspective. I think this is an opportunity to go deeper on his insight on this rural development and in this smallholder scale agriculture in Asia. Professor Otsuka, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Shingo, for introducing myself. I'm very proud that Shingo is organizing this important forum very well. I'm very proud because he was my student. First of all, I'd like to entertain the audience here by showing photos of cherry blossom. This is exactly what they are now. These cherry blossoms are just in front of my office in Kobe. They are really beautiful. But it has nothing to do with my presentation, so let's go to the next page. As we get older, we usually become more pessimistic, and that is the case for me. I'm very pessimistic about the future of agriculture in Asia. Next page, please. Okay. So farm size is a very important issue in determining the efficiency of agriculture. When economy is underdeveloped, wage rate is low, or therefore labor cost is low. Then adoption of labor-intensive production method is appropriate. Since production is labor-intensive, small farms applying large amount of family labor per unit of land are more productive than large farms. So there is an inverse relationship between farm size and productivity. That is very, very well known. But when economy is developed, wage rate rises and labor cost becomes high. Therefore, adoption of labor-saving, capital-using production method becomes appropriate. Since production is capital-intensive, mechanized large farms are more productive than small farms, resulting in the positive relationship between farm size and productivity. Asian agriculture is in the process of transition from the first stage to the second stage. So this one. So if economy is a low-income stage, we observe negative relationship between farm size and productivity, particularly gross revenue or yield per hectare. And when economy develops and becomes a middle-income country or high-income country, a positive relationship emerges. Can you go to the next slide? So conventionally, inverse relationship was observed in many developing countries in Asia, particularly in India. It is very well known that there is inverse relationship. More recently, however, it is found that inverse relationship has been weakened or disappeared in certain countries in Asia. And then, funny thing is that the U-shaped relationship has emerged in some countries, where traditional small farms and the mechanized large farms coexist. One example is China. And positive relationship is observed in developed countries, including Japan, United States, and Australia. Worrisome is that the farm size is small, still very small in Asia, and also farm size is declining in Asia. So what's going to happen? Can we see? Yeah, this is a graph showing farm size in several countries. The Philippines is an extreme case. In 1960, average farm size was 3.5 hectares, but it has become now nearly 1 hectare. Even Thailand, it has been declining. China, look at China. Accurate data are not available in China, but according to Jikun Huan, the average farm size is, as of 2014, farm size is only 0.8 hectares. And now maybe 1 hectare, but it's very, very tiny. And if farm size is tiny, production method is labor intensive. Mechanization, large mechanization is not possible. Therefore, production cost increases because Chinese economy is growing, wage rate is rising, labor cost is rising. So it's worrisome. One exception is Japan. Farm size has been increasing. That's a good news. But look at the size of the farm, only 3 hectares. In Europe, I think average is about 50 hectares. 3 hectares is too tiny for Japan. Okay, and as a result, Asia, next slide please. So yeah, I'm thinking about bad scenario and good scenario. Bad scenario is preserve small farms, and therefore cost of labor cost increases due to rapid economic development, and that leads to loss of comparative advantage in agriculture. And that will lead to stagnation of rural economies and massive import of foods in Asia. And that leads to increasing global food prices and deterioration of poverty and food insecurity globally. That's a nightmare. But there is good scenario, preservation, small farm, etc. But the farm size expansion takes place to facilitate labor saving. And that will mitigate a loss of comparative advantage or even restore the comparative advantage in agriculture. If that happens, rural economies will be revitalized, and there will be a transformation of subsistence agriculture into high-value commercialized agriculture. In addition, if high-value agricultural revolution takes place, we need agro-processing activities in rural areas. That is a main source of rural industrialization. So many good things happen if good scenario is valid. Next slide, please. So what is a fact? Unfortunately, Asian agriculture seems to be following my bad scenario at present. Food self-sufficiency, this is not my favorite slide. Okay, food self-sufficiency has been declining, and not only import of grains, but also import of high-value products has been increasing in Asia, indicating that transformation into high-value agriculture is not taking place widely in Asia. Okay, next, please. Yeah, this graph shows grain self-sufficiency in selected countries in Asia. Look at Japan and South Korea. In 1961, the self-sufficiency ratio was 70% to 90%. But now it's only 20%. And similarly, even in Thailand, self-sufficiency ratio exceeds 1. That means Thailand is a net exporter. But self-sufficiency ratio has been declining, and also that self-sufficiency ratio in China and others have been declining. And then if we look at real value of net exports or import of grains by major region, plus means export, minus means import. If we look at East Asia, it's negative. And also, it is becoming more negative. That means import of grain has been increasing in East Asia as a whole. And exporters are South America and also South Asia. Particularly in India is exporting a lot due to subsidy. So it's not necessarily good news. And if you look at the high-value products, next slide, please. again, East Asia has been increasing import of high-value products. And again, the South America is a major exporter of high-value products, including vegetables, fruits, meats, and dairy. Okay, let's go to my last slide. Okay, so to reduce the cost of production in high-performing Asian countries, we have to facilitate farm size expansion, for example, by renting. In the United States, large farmers are tenants, and small farmers are landlords, because there are scale economies. Therefore, some large farmers renting land from small landlords. That is the case in developed countries. We have to change the conceptualization. And so through renting in particular, the farm size expansion must be facilitated. Secondly, to improve livelihood of farmers, we must promote transformation into high-value agriculture because demand for high-value products has been increasing. Since high-value products and improved production methods are generally new, we have to strengthen research and also extension activities. I think I have a little bit more time. As already I discussed yesterday, there are hundreds of studies which attempt to assess the impact of introduction of high-value products, particularly through contract farming. I reviewed most of them. I found that 50% of studies found no impact of contract farming on income of farmers. 50% of studies found only little impacts on income of farmers. Why? I think the reason is under contract farming, contractors like supermarkets and agro-processors provide inputs, particularly improved seeds and safe pesticide. And also contractor provides training for production of high-value products. So that means farmers passively accept inputs and passively accept instruction for cultivation without making any major decision making. How can farmers be better off? Farmers can become richer if they make appropriate, proper decisions under dynamic conditions. So we have to invest in human capital of farmers so that farmers can make own decisions in farming rather than rely on the instruction by agro-processors. Since high-value products must be processed before supplying to urban markets and European markets and so on, we have to develop agro-processing industries in rural areas, including pack house operations, which should be a core of the rural industrialization. And the economists tend to assume that private farms are efficient. That's not the case. There are a lot of inefficiencies in operation of agro-processing farms. So the consensus among development economics is that the most serious constraining factor on development of enterprises in developing countries is the lack of managerial ability. Management is horrible in many enterprises in Asia and Africa. We have to train them. Otherwise, agro-processing industries will never develop. Therefore, agricultural policy must aim at development of both high-value agriculture and end agro-processing industries simultaneously in rural areas. Otherwise, rural area will not be revitalized again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Otsuka. This great insight based on 50 years of experience in rural Asia and your observation, processing, and agriculture farm income is very important point for us to note, and very proud to be your students always. So now let me turn to Professor Mikitaro Shobayashi, who can share the experience of rural development in Japan and some summary of some implication to other countries. Dr. Shobayashi is has many experience in different positions in the Ministry of Agriculture and also the OECD, World Bank. And he was became a professor in Gakushu Women's University in 2007. And in 2007, he nominated for the vice president for the college. And then now he has moved to this Research Institute of Humanity and Nature in 2023, and he's leading the program on the Combining Knowledge for Fundamental Innovation of Land Use program. So with that, I'd like to give floor to Professor Shobayashi.
So thank you very much. First of all, let me start by thanking the organizers and especially Dr. Kimura for inviting me to this very important and challenging forum. As Dr. Kimura kindly explained, I used to work for the Ministry of Agriculture, the World Bank in Washington, OECD in Paris, Shiga Prefecture government in Japan, and I sometimes find myself, well, who am I? And anyway, and since I left the public organizations, I started working for a university in Tokyo, located in Tokyo, and then from April last year, I started working for the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature. And what I would like to present today is to focus on how we need to harmonize rural development policy and agricultural policies, especially when promoting agricultural production cannot be a single, unique policy objective. And I would like to share with you some experiences in Japan, but also I may refer to some experiences of other OECD member countries. Next, please. So after touching upon some contextual information about Japan, I would discuss how we have been shifting from single objective to multi-objectives in terms of the agriculture and rural development policies. Then I would like to discuss something about the jointness. I defined it as jointness. I'll come back later to this point. And then I would like to share with some lessons. Next, please. So as you know, Japan has been experiencing depopulation. And the left-hand side graph shows that this is Japan's population projections with each scenario showing a significant decline. So it's quite sure. And the right-hand graph shows the population trends in metropolitan areas. Now that the rapid population movement from rural areas to urban areas has ended in Japan, but there is concern about the balance between Tokyo area and other regions. And this fact has the potential to undermine the discussions on rural development. Next, please. This graph shows the per capita budget deficit of municipal governments. We do have more than 2,000 municipal governments in Japan. And as the rate of aging grows, the deficit, fiscal deficit is widening. So usually these deficits have been covered by vertical transfers from the central government. But this situation too is at risk in the face of population decline and aging at national level. So this is what we are facing in Japan. And another thing which, next please, another feature which I would like to emphasize is Japan has invested huge money in irrigation drainage facilities over the past several decades, which have become a hallmark of Japanese agriculture. Of course, these investments have the potential to increase resilience to climate change, but the huge stocks are beginning to deteriorate. As you see, the gray line is the net stock of agricultural infrastructure, many of which are for irrigation drainage. And the net stock has started declining some years ago. And the last context which I would like to mention is the structural changes in the agriculture sector, especially in rice cultivation. As Professor Otsuka pointed out, we are still facing the small size of farm management. The average figure is around 3 hectares per farm. But if we take a look, next slide, please. If we take a look at the percentage of land cultivated by large-scale farmers with holdings of 10 hectares or more, has almost doubled in the last 15 years. So it used to be 34.2% was cultivated by large farmers in the year of 2005. Now the figure moved up to 55.3%. So therefore, the policy focus in Japan has shifted to addressing issues related to scattered parcels, like the graph in the right-hand side. Then let me talk about, next slide please, the policy shift. Agricultural policy is moving from single objectives to multiple objectives. The Basic Act on Agriculture was enacted in 1961, and its objective was to reduce the disparity in productivity and income between agriculture and the other sectors. Now in 1999, a new act was enacted on food, agriculture, and rural affairs, in which we have 4 major objectives, which are stable food supply, preserving multifunctionality, sustainable agricultural production, and rural vitalization. I'll come back later to this point. Next slide, please. Of course, this change of policy objectives has not been unique in Japan only. This change has been observed in many countries, especially in many OECD countries. This is the case of the European Union's Common Agricultural Policy, the latest version of the Common Agricultural Policy, which incorporates 10 policy objectives, ranging from fair income for farmers, competitiveness, climate change, environmental care, generational renewal, vibrant rural areas, and so on. So the objectives are quite wide. Next slide, please. So the real challenge is not in setting multiple objectives, but in establishing the institutional framework and governance to deal with the trade-offs between them. There have been many arguments about the European Union's cap, and but at least I'm very much appreciating the fact that they carried out, they tried to assess potential trade-offs between policy objectives before the policy implementation. And mitigating trade-offs may require technical or institutional measures, but ultimately we need to bear in mind that ultimately we need to institutionalize how we balance different values in society. This is a very important point, I think. Next slide, please. Then let me talk about the jointness. I would like to discuss how important it is to address potential trade-offs in the underlying policy framework. So as I said, the current Basic Act has 4 principles or objectives in which 2 types of jointness were implicitly built in. One jointness is between sustainable agricultural production and multifunctionality. The other one is sustainable agricultural production and rural viability, meaning that as long as you can have sustainable agricultural production, multifunctionality would be automatically preserved. As long as you have sustainable agricultural production, rural viability would be automatically preserved. So this is not always the case, but the basic law implicitly assumes that fixed jointness. Next slide, please. And I believe that we need to break away from the assumption of jointness. And this is prerequisite for innovating rural policies. Let me explain. So the jointness between sustainable agricultural production and multifunctionality may have undermined the importance of changing the level of multifunctionality, which resulted in a situation where agri-environmental measures are inadequate in Japan compared to the other OECD countries. So just forget about the horizontal axis. Please focus on the vertical axis. Vertical axis is showing the share of agri-environmental payments in the total budgetary transfer to individual farmers. And that figure for Japan is 0.2%. Compared to those figures in other OECD member countries, the Japanese figure is incredibly small. And next slide, please. Also, the other jointness, which is the jointness between sustainable agricultural production and rural vitalization, also may have led to an insufficient discussion of why rural vitalization is necessary. For example, as I showed you an example of one village land use, in that village, they do have 90 hectares of farmland, and they now do have only 6 large-scale farmers. So they don't necessarily have to have 100 or 200 households anymore. If rural communities are meant to support agricultural production. So this also gave rise to centralized rural development policies with the main focus on promoting agricultural production. The graph is an example of a prefecture government budgetary allocation to the agriculture sector, and the line shows the percentage of the central government financing. And most of the major budgetary items in that prefecture in terms of the agriculture sector is being supported by the central government, which reduces the flexibility of regional governments to get adjusted to the real situation. Next slide, please. So lessons that could be shared among Asian countries. First of all, the first lesson is that the collective action needed to maintain irrigation drainage facilities at a tertiary level may be hampered by rapid rural population decline. And I don't think I do have a time to touch upon this conceptual diagram. But basically, rural communities, especially paddy field communities, are supported by the collective action by community members for irrigation drainage facility maintenance. But rapid population decline may hamper that one. But that may be replaced with a technological innovation. But more fundamentally, however, we need to ask why we continue to need rural communities. There is little disagreement about the fact that we need agriculture. I don't think there would be any disagreement. But there may be room for discussions as to why rural communities are necessary, especially when structural change happen. In other words, are rural communities required only to support agricultural production? And this discussion also requires deep discussions about how we live with nature and how we envision nature and climate-positive agriculture. Next slide, please. And the second lesson concerns large-scale investment during the growth stage of agricultural production. All countries, depending on irrigation drainage, need to reconsider how to properly establish cost-sharing policies, especially for rehabilitation. Although this issue has been a major policy issue in the last maybe several decades, when I was for the World Bank, it was one of the core policy issues. And this graph shows for many Asian countries, the budgetary allocation for general agricultural services, including infrastructure management, inspection and control, and research and development. For many Asian countries, the vast share of those spending are provided to infrastructure management. Next, please. And also, what is common for many Asian countries, including Japan, is farmers, individual farmers are being supported by various policy measures, including price support and direct payments. But in the case of many Asian countries, Japan, Korea, or Philippines, or China, the majority of the support is coming from the price support, including high tariffs, meaning that the budgetary allocation for individual farmers may not be as large as we expected, meaning that in addition to the financial burden on maintaining irrigation and drainage facilities, we don't have many flexibilities in reallocating funds to address newly emerging issues such as climate change and so on. So then there is a need to emphasize, supporting farmers' income can no longer be an ultimate policy objective in many countries. And there is a need to emphasize the principle of public money for public goods. Next, please. So I would like to conclude with the last slide. As agricultural policy moves from a single objective to multiple objectives, coordination between agricultural policy systems and other policy systems proves to be complex. We are also well aware that the need to establish an integrated approach to enable holistic coordination between policy systems. But given that it is not an easy task, implicit assumptions of synergies should be avoided, which means that jointness needed to be delinked in the very first beginning of the policy development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shobayashi. This is a great overview of the experience of Japan and this changing policy objective in many, particularly in the high-income countries. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Il-jung Jeong. He is the Minister Counselor in the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea since 2021. He has been long career in the Korean Ministry of Agriculture, MAFRA, over 30 years, served as Director General of International Cooperation Bureau in Korean Ministry of Agriculture. He has served in many international organizations, including OECD, IFAD, and many others. I think he's the best person to introduce Korea's experience. Dr. Jeong, please.
Thank you very much, Shingo. And I would like to thank the previous very wonderful presentations, and also especially Professor K. Yesterday, your insight into the plenary was quite impressive to me. Today, I would like to speak about the two great events which occurred in Korea in 1970s. These two events actually could create policy implication to the developing countries. Can I use this one? One of them is the new village movement in Korean. We call it 새마을 운동. This changed totally the Korean rural society to be modernized one. And another one is green revolution in rice in Korea. The new village movement, 새마을 운동, actually started from 1970. There were several previous rural development initiatives before this one, but all of them actually failed. But this one made great success and changed totally the Korean society from traditional village to the modern society. It started with the President Park Chung-hee's initiative and supported fully by the Korean government. However, all the village activities was actually decided by village leader and village town hall meeting. They enjoyed all of autonomy in their decision, what they do in their village at that time. The lessons we could learn from the Semail movement is that the village leader is the most important success factor. Their devotion and passion is very important. And in Semail Undong case, the village leader was voluntary job and actually was not paid. We analyze all the rural development like the practices in the Korean village situation. For example, even whether they have a great resource or not, that is not important in the success. The most important thing is that they have a great leader in that village. For example, tourism. You are promoting tourism in your village. The most important factor is the leader. If you have a leader only work 9 to 6, it doesn't work. The leader who get up in the morning, think all the time from until he sleep, he think about how to improve my village. That kind of leader change the village and make a miracle. So that is the most important factor. And this is the scene of the village election, leader election, and this is a kind of a town hall meeting. And this the leader is very important. And also another important thing is that the government should give right incentive to the village, which showed good performance. In Korean case, we have divided 3 type of village. One is the lowest one is basic village. Another one higher than is self-help village, and then self-reliant village. When I work in some international organization, for example, they implemented some kind of development work. There is a village A made a very good performance, and village B, village C made the lowest performance. When they give money, distribute money the next year, some international organizations told that we should give more money to village C because they are very retarded, very slow in the development. But the philosophy in the Semail movement is totally different. They give incentive, more money to the village who performed very bad, very best. Actually, I had very difficult to persuade them. They could not understand this kind of logic because we are helping the poorest people. So why we should give more money to the lowest performed village? But in that case, you make incentive to not work hard, people. So actually, you should think differently. Why the Semail movement could make a success? We give a lot of more incentive to the high-performed village. So that makes them, stimulate them to work harder, and the other village also try to harder to get more money. That kind of incentive system is very important. And this is the factors how to divide the self-help village and the self-reliant village. And the other is that the systematic support of the government is very important, and especially genuine, sincere concerns from the head of state is crucial. In Korean case, President Park Chung-hee, every month he made Semail Undong cabinet meeting once a month. He continues this kind of monthly meeting for 10 years. Every monthly meeting, they chose 2 successful cases, and they, the farmer, the village leader, and the governor of that province came together to the cabinet meeting, and the village leader explained what was his difficulty, how we overcome, and how we make success. Sometimes all the people, like president, including president and cabinet ministers all cried together. And then this kind of the story was broadcasted in every month in the television. And then President gave some great present to that village to stimulate that. So this kind of case make a model for the village leader, other village leaders. So it kind of make a stimulate to them, they move ahead. So that kind of, every month, this kind of performance was quite impressive to move forward on this movement. And also the peer learning is very important. Like the Korean government, every 3 or 4 months, they held all the village leaders together, and then very successful leaders make some kind of speech in front of them. Then sometimes they cry together, and sometimes they share their the joy together, how they make successful. This kind of continuous peer learning make them stimulate to make more development in their part, their village. And also to achieve rural development, women empowerment was very important. Until 1970s, during the winter time, men made gambling a lot. Because they have no work during the winter time. For example, my aunt's husband was farmer. He gambled a lot. He earned a lot by the farming, but he lost almost his fortune during the gambling into the winter. Sometimes he gambled 2 days, 2 nights continuously, and lost all of his fortunes. And then their 4 children suffered a lot from that kind of gambling. So each woman actually cannot make stop his husband to stop the gambling. But women's organization can do that together. When there is somebody knows that gambling in the village, then one woman make a ring on the bell in the whole village. Then all the women gathered together and march to that house and take out their husband from that place. This kind of, and then they make fire all those kind of gambling method or instruments. That kind of thing make them stop the gambling in that time. And also this kind of grassroots movement, when Korea have a currency crisis in 1997, this kind of women's movement actually make them like a gold gathering to overcome the Koreans' difficulty during the currency crisis. And another thing is, it is important not to make bureaucratic activity in the village movement. Like that, this kind of movement should be performed with pure passion to contribute in the development of their own village. After this Jamal movement success, and after the death of the President Park Chung-hee in 1980s, another government started to bureaucratize this Jamal movement. In the Park Chung-hee era, there are only village leaders in that area, but they established the bureaucracy of the regional and the national civil society organization. Then this kind of self-help movement actually died away, and it made the failure. It could not make any more progress after that. So there was corruption, and so it was very difficult not to make the bureaucratize of this kind of movement is very important. So this is the Jamal movement's the result, and it changed a lot Korean society. It's like the village. Another example is I would like to explain the Green Revolution in Korea. And in 1970, Korea's rice self-sufficiency is 80%. And at that time, we exported around $1 billion US but we imported rice and the grain almost $200 million. So 20% of our the export was spent on the import of the grain. It is a kind of a big national burden. And we also suffered a lot at that time because of the shortage of the rice. So we could eat 3 times per day from September to February, but we have only 2 times or 1 times the other February to September because of the shortage of rice. So we suffered this kind of shortage of rice for several thousand years in Korean history. But in 1960s and 70s, we decided we will overcome this kind of shortage of rice. From the president of all the people in the Korea, we decided that. Then we overcome in 10 years. In 1997, we made the self-sufficiency ratio of we reached 1.9. We produced 9% more, and actually we rented them to even Indonesia in 1997. So we overcome this kind of situation by developing new seed development, new variety, 통일 rice. And at that time, the ED had already developed in 1966 the new the semi-dwarf rice, but this is indica. But in that time, in Korea grows the Japonica type rice. The height is more than 1 meter. When wind blow, typhoon blow, it goes down. Then the production goes 50% less. So it is also the amount of the pinnacle was very small, and so it was not good for make a self-sufficiency at that time. So at that time, the average production was only 3.8 metric ton per hectare. So in 1968, December 31st, new report, the Prime Minister of Agriculture go to the President. We said that to overcome this kind of shortage rice, we will develop the new rice, new variety in 10 years. It should be currently more than 1 meter, but it should be shorter, like the 70 or 80 centimeter. And it should produce more than 6 metric ton, and very good pinnacle. But we cannot develop this one by ourselves. So we will ask help from the ED. This is a very candid strategy. Because we have no ability, we will ask help from the ED in the Los Baños in Philippines. And then another is the shuttle breeding. Shuttle breeding means that this new type variety should be good for our Korean soil quality and climate. We need the adaptation experiment. So from spring we plant them in Korea, then harvest in the autumn, then we will ship them to the Philippines by the airplane, and we will have one more generation during the winter in Korea. Then we bring back to the Korea in the spring again. So to do that, IR8 is indica type. We have the Japonica type. So we make the combination with another, at that time, until time they told that indica and Japonica type is the same species, but they cannot make combination. But some scholars told that they could make, if you can make a huge amount of experiment, then we actually developed 통일 rice in 1971, and it produced around 5 million metric ton. And then this is our cultivation at that time. And in the harvest in Philippines, and we shipped those products in the Korean airline. But this one, after we developed this one, we have several difficulties to disseminate to the people, because this one has the cold susceptibility because it has indica gene, tropical gene. So we need to make the final, like the protected nursery. But this is new technology. People, like small-scale farmers, do not like the adapt the new technology. So we had a hard time to persuade the farmers to adopt this new technology. And then, anyway, we persuaded them, and in 1971, we had only 0.02%. But we make, like 78, like 76% of the paddy field was filled with the tong rice. Then we make self-sufficiency ratio like 1.9% in 1977. So Korea suffered several thousand years. Many people are starved, even starved to death. But we made self-sufficiency, reach self-sufficiency in 10 years. This is a kind of a great example. And because of the shortage of my time, I would like to stop it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iljon, and great presentation, and I think a lot to learn. I think we'd like to hear more from you going forward. So next, I think we have one more speaker from China, Professor Chen Ji, online. Are you there? Professor Ji is Associate Professor of China Academy of Rural China, Department of Agricultural Economics and Management of Zhejiang University. She will introduce these new innovations in rural development in China. Can you connect, Felix?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please. So please go ahead. 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Ji Chen from China Academy for Rural Development of Zhejiang University. I'm currently in China, so I'm going to present my slides virtually. So today I'm going to talk about an overview of the green innovation and rural revitalization in agricultural sector in China from a specific perspective of agri-food firms. Well, this is also one of the recent works that I'm collaborating with Professor Kevin Chen. Oh, so I cannot control my slides? Okay, thank you. So green innovation plays a very positive and important role in rural revitalization, not only in China, but as well in Asian and a lot of developing countries. It brings some new opportunities to the rural development, such like it can increase food production, feed more hungry people, as well to improve the food security and improve the nutrition without increasing environmental pressures. Next, please. Well, green innovation plays very positive roles in a lot of aspects of rural revitalization. For example, it increases the labor use efficiency and helps to upgrade the industrial structure. As well, it contributes to the high quality economic development. On the other hand, green innovation can increase energy use efficiency, for example, to reduce the energy intensity, to reduce the carbon emissions, and as well to promote the environmental protection. So overall, green innovation not only can contribute to the economic development, but as well it helps to improve the environmental performance in rural areas. So here in this slide, you can see I list a series of policies published during the past few years from the central government of China to promote the agriculture green innovation. You may want to click the slide so that, yeah. For example, you can see in 2022, the Chinese central government has published 14th five-year plan for the development of agriculture and rural science and technology. And actually, the 14th five-year plan is one of the most important the country level strategy and development plan for the whole country. So the Chinese government pays a lot of attention to increase agricultural green innovation. Yes. And as well, the Chinese government invests a lot in agriculture green innovation. For example, from 2021 to 2023, the central government allocated over 7 billion yuan to carry out pilot projects of green farming and circular agriculture. Well, regarding to the green, global green innovation status, we can see from this figure, here the green innovations refer to green innovations from all different industries, but not only limited to agriculture industry. We can see from not only the technology percentage change, but as well the environmental technology percentage change. China leads the world in the growth rate of green technology innovation. And from this figure, you can see from 2016 to 2022, China is also among the top 5 applicants who submit the largest number of green and low carbon patents in the world and made public. You can see that accumulatively, China has created almost 400,000 numbers of green and low carbon patents during this period. Okay, and China's green patents in hydrogen energy storage, and other technologies have grown very rapidly. Specifically, for example, hydrogen energy innovations grew the fastest with an average annual growth rate over 20%. And from 2016 to 2021, China's green and low carbon patents are led by Beijing, Jiangsu, and Guangdong provinces. And these 3 provinces are all located in the east coast of China. However, the proportion of green and low carbon patents related to agriculture is still relatively small. So from this picture, we can see we did analysis from the CCAD database, and we can see the time trend of the types and proportion of green innovations in agri-food sector in China. So generally, the agri-food innovations increased over the past years, and the largest share of the green innovations come from pesticide alternative irrigation and soil improvement green innovations. And from this pie chart, we can see that the green patents by types of enterprises, and over 80% of the green patents come from limited liability companies. And from this figure, we can see that if we divide the green patents by industry types, you can see that the patents from agriculture, forestry, animal livestock, and fishery, as well input production, water conservation facility, and research and development technical service industries contribute the largest share of the green patents in agri-food sector. And regional distribution of agricultural green patents is very unequal. As you can see from this figure, for the top 3 provinces, Anhui, Shandong, and Jiangsu provinces, they have developed over 3,500 green patents during 2015 to 2021, while for some other provinces like Xizang and Qinghai, they developed only under 100 numbers of green patterns during this period. And so we also did an empirical analysis on the impact of green innovation on the financial performance of agri-food firms in China, because we think agri-food firms are very important and proactive stakeholders in the agri-food value chains in China, and they also lead the small farmers in China to develop the rural development. And we are very curious about this topic because a lot of entrepreneurs from agri-food sector told us that they think that green innovations are great cost for their development. So we use the very comprehensive data from CCAD, which contains over 600,000 agri-food firms from 2013 to 2022, including a lot of relevant variables of corporate green innovation and their financial performance data. So due to the time limitation, I'm not going to go specifically to the empirical strategy, but just let you know that we used the PSM-DID method to estimate the influence of green innovation on the financial performance of the agri-food firms. Yeah, so I think I'm also going to skip this slide. Yeah, so just to let you know the baseline results that we recently got. So using the irrigation innovation as example, we can see the number of green patterns of irrigation innovation in agricultural sector have positive influence on the financial performance of the agri-food firms using the indicators of return on asset and return on equity, ROA and ROE. We actually also did a lot of robustness checks and as well heterogeneous effects. But due to the time limits, I'm not going to present you all the results. Just let you know the baseline result. But we will present all the results in American Applied and Agricultural Association Conference, which will be held in the United States in July this year. So I hope maybe for the audience who are interested, you will be able to hear our more detailed results in that conference. So this is the end of the presentation for today from my side. Thank you for your attention. Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Ji, and your presentations and the introduction of these green innovations in China. And now I'd like to invite all the panelists to the floor. And while waiting, I think I would like to open the floor to the audience, both online and on site. I think today we have a lot of discussion on the experience of East Asia. I think we have many commonality. For example, this value chain development, how this value chain development can increase the farm income. Question on the how the rural development can or farmers can benefit from environmental externality and natural capital. How community can engage with the rural development and so on. So maybe I would like to ask Mr. Prasoon. You have many experience in many Asian countries. Maybe how do you see those experiences apply to India or any other country you're overseeing in the region? You can go to the speaking stand. Or anyone else, if you want to raise questions, please go to the speaking stand.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm audible. Okay, I have noted many things, but I cannot ask all those. But what actually came to my mind that there are a few very interesting areas you have touched upon, but still we need to have a little bit more because this session is on deep dive. So we need a little bit a deep dive on basically no major point, what actually shapes a rural development approach. what are the major criteria, what we as as an association of the financial institutions in this region, what we will be understanding as the major indicator which will shape the rural development and which will be little bit more democratic way, no regional disparity, no digital divide. And do you think that the context, the changing context, how this changing context can help us to invest more on the rural development? Because we still feel rural development, if we invest more in smart cities, are more remunerative than invest on smart village. So what are those criteria and areas where we should start negotiating with the government, we should start engaging with the development partners? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other question? Mark, please.
Yeah, these, the examples we heard, the highly successful examples in many cases, they seem to all come from countries that are highly culturally cohesive and in many cases quite authoritarian during the periods of these big reforms. There's certainly Korea back in the 70s and 80s and well, China even today, somewhat less so in Japan, but there's also a lot of, I think, moral authority of the governments in Japan. And can these lessons and procedures be successful in more chaotic countries or governments and less cohesive countries in Asia?
Thank you, Mark. Maybe I turn to the panelists. If anyone can take a question from Mr. President on this changing context and what's the kind of entry point to start this rural development as a main agenda. Kevin? Or, yeah.
Well, thank you, President. This is a very important question. And I can speak from the experience of China. And major efforts in the research community, for example, and also for policymakers, is really to come up with the indicator matrix. And so the list of different indicators to measure the comprehensive development in rural areas. And largely it's covers several areas like industry, environment, and living conditions, and governance. And those are probably four major ones. And people particularly look at village economic development and also look at the rural-urban gap in the income. But however, once when we try to do that, to do the impact of, for example, the rural revitalization program in Zhejiang province. So how can you get the data on the village level? GDP development become a challenge. So we use the lights in the village. We compare the urban lights versus rural village lights. Those data are available after 1992. It's not long enough to measure the success or performance in Japan and South Korea, but good enough to measure the performance in China. So let me stop right here.
Thank you. Maybe Kay also, please.
In my view, agrarian reform is a major problem. The same guy, Radezinski, implemented land agrarian reform in Japan, India, and the Philippines. And the agrarian reform law suppresses land rental market by setting very low land rent. And also land reform law applies so-called land to the tiller program. with a maximum land holding. If owner owns more than, in the case of Philippines, 7 hectares, this excess land must be transferred to tenants. So those laws, the land agrarian reform law prevents farm size expansion from taking place. That's a major problem in Asia, but America is responsible for this. and so, returning to the Dr. Das issue, I would set the target of farm size in India, for example, 10 hectares or 20 hectares. And then financially, you support consolidation of small plots or promotion of mechanization. And there are many ways to promote farm size expansion. If farm size is not expanded, there is no future of agriculture in Asia.
Yeah. Thank you for the good questions. Like the indicators for the rural development is at first, when you look at the Korean case, the improvement of the living environment. For example, we have very short, narrow road and no bridge in the village and dirty. So, and the roof was made by the weeds, and we need to change every year. But through this kind of semi movement, we changed all the living environment with like slate roof and widened the village road, and that kind of the thing is very important. But later, important is that farmers' income should be increased. Currently, the Korean farmers' income, average farm income is like around 67% of the rural average, like 1/2. In China case, now is only 33%, 1/3 of the average income from the urban incomes. So in that case, it is very, very difficult to the young generation to put under the rural area. So this kind of increasing the income is very important. The green evolution and the rural development in Korean case is quite related, because that as we have the green evolution in rice, then at 1970s, for the first time in Korean history, average income of the rural was higher than the urban at that time, more than 100%. Now it decreased to 67%, but at that time it was more than 100%. And because of that, they could sell the surplus of the rice. We started commercial farming. Farmers could find that they can earn the money from the selling their agricultural product to the market. This kind of the lesson was very important. And another question from the Mark, this authoritarian regime is more like the good, more like beneficial or good for to invite the rural development or thing. This is quite important philosophical questions, and in East Asian cases, actually the more when there is more authoritarian regime, it was more easier to like make some kind of development. But I'm not sure in the Western case there was many like voluntary cooperatives occurred. Then it helped to development in their area. So the development model is quite different. So to solve this question, probably we need the more like concentrated, like organized research.
I think Professor Shobayashi has worked in the chaotic country as well, and how you see this community engagement and more government centralizations. Your view will be appreciated.
Yes, let me first respond to the first question on the indicator or criteria. And I'm a little bit skeptical about setting up several indicators like income, quality of sewage, and so on. Because, as I said, rural vitalization needs to have multi-objective things, meaning that some people may place values on certain aspects, but some people may have values on other aspects. And overall, in a region, what would be the best choice of those options would really depend on how society places values on rural areas. And in that context, I prefer using a kind of index showing well-being, like OECD's Better Life Index, showing they have 11 indicators covering various aspects of the well-being. And in fact, I try to introduce that idea to a city rural development program in a city in Japan. And we need to see whether this would be successful or not, but we'll see. And regarding Mark's question, yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, when I was working for the World Bank, I was not quite sure whether some neoclassical approach, which had been successful in many developed countries, could be applied, for example, to the case of irrigation water management in Pakistan. But on the other hand, what I try to share with you today is not a success story of the Japanese case. Actually, I would say it may be a failure story which Japan has experienced. And I think sharing success story or sharing failure story, I personally feel that sharing failure story may be of greater value to the other countries rather than sharing success story, because success story really depends on context in each region, including the governance structure and so on. But there may be some common features in terms of the failure stories. So I'm not sure whether I'm answering to your question, but that's my feeling.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to close the session, but I think this sharing a success and failure story is very important. I think this is a great panel. So I really want to propose that we will have some more structured study on the summarizing the experience of rural development in East Asia and implication to other parts of Asia who will face similar challenges in the next decades. And that's very, very important for ADB operations. So Kevin, can you host such a study in your institute?
Well, it will be very welcomed and very important. And I just use this occasion to respond to Mark's comments. I think we got exactly the same question inside of China, because they are called for learning the experience of Zhejiang province, which in China is well-off province. Then the question you got from western part of China, is that replicatable? Exactly the same question from Mark for the world. And so our answer to that is, you look at the method of development, philosophy of development. For example, you have to do the nature valuation. How can you turn the nature valuation part into the economic development? That means the synergy between the nature and the economic development is going to be very important. So they are approach like beneficiary payment system, which is a market-based approach that could be universally applicable. So we're probably not looking for replicate certain case, but hopefully to apply some philosophy of development and approach that could be useful.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin, and really looking forward to work with all of you here. And thanks again, and please give applause to all the panelists and speakers.